Sunday lunch at the Finwoods' house was always a test of endurance, but today something told me it would be worse than usual. Dad sat at the head of the table with that particular expression I had learned to recognize as a child, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed, fingers drumming on the tabletop. Mom bustled around, setting out plates of roast chicken and mashed potatoes, but even her usual theatrical cheerfulness seemed forced. Amos sat across from me, buried in her phone, only occasionally looking up to give me a meaningful glance. "Karina, put down your phone and help your mother," my father grumbled, even though my phone was lying on the kitchen table. I got up and brought the salad bowl, trying not to pay attention to his tone. On days like this, it was better to keep quiet and keep a low profile. "Ooh, well, the family's here." Mom sat down in her place and folded her hands in her lap. "Olgar, start." I felt my stomach clench into a knot. So this was a trap. A trap planned and discussed in advance, and I, like a fool, came here with a bouquet of flowers and a box of cookies from the bakery on Main Street. My father cleared his throat and looked at me with the kind of look you usually give a child who has done something particularly wrong. "Karina, we need to have a serious talk." "About what?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but inside I was cringing with familiar childhood fear. "About what you've done to our family business," he said, as if I had set fire to their stationery store with my own hands. I blinked. "What did I do?" "Dad, I only worked in the store for 2 years after college, and that was 5 years ago." "Exactly! You abandoned us when we needed you most!" My father's voice rose. "We counted on you, planned to pass the business on to you, and you ran away as soon as things got tough." My mother sighed heavily and shook her head. "We had such high hopes that our eldest daughter would take responsibility for the family, but no, you wanted your independence." "I left because I wanted to do my own thing," I tried to explain, "and because you were always arguing over every little thing. Remember how you didn't talk to each other for a week because of who should order the paper clips?" "Don't change the subject." My father slammed his fist on the table, causing the plates to jump. "You ruined the business and spent all our money." "What money?" I didn't understand what he was talking about. "I didn't take any money from you. On the contrary, when I left you my share of the store." "Oh, who bought you a car? Who paid for your education? Who gave you money for the first few months of rent?" My mother listed these things as if each item were a separate crime against humanity. "That was 5 years ago, and I paid it all back." I felt myself getting angry. "Every last cent. Back?" My mother dramatically pressed her hand to her heart. "Honey, a few $1,000s is a drop in the ocean compared to what we lost when you abandoned us." Amos looked up from her phone. "Mom, maybe you're overreacting. Karina's right, she paid it back. I remember Dad bragging that she even paid interest." "Are you against us too?" Mom turned to her younger daughter with the look of a betrayed empress. "Your sister destroyed our dreams of a family business, and you're defending her?" "No one ruined anything." I tried to remain calm. "You closed the store 2 years after I left. And not because I left, but because a large office center with a stationery department opened in Orange. We would have managed if we had had the support of the family." My father raised his voice again. "But no, our daughter preferred to think only of herself." I looked at them and suddenly realized that it was useless. It was completely useless to explain that I was not to blame for the closure of their store. It was pointless to remind them that they themselves had told me to find my calling. It was pointless to try to logically analyze their claims, because logic had nothing to do with it. They needed someone to blame, and I fit the role perfectly. The obedient daughter who was still afraid of their disapproval and willing to take responsibility for other people's failures. "Fine," I said wearily. "Let's say it's all my fault. What do you want? What do I have to do to make up for it?" Mom and Dad exchanged glances, and I realized that this conversation was not a spontaneous outburst of emotion, but a premeditated attack. They had been preparing for this, rehearsing their arguments, thinking through their strategy. "We think you should help us financially." My mom said it so softly, as if she were offering me another piece of chicken. "After all, it's because of you that we lost our source of income." "I don't have any money," I lied automatically. Over the years of communicating with my parents, I had learned to instinctively protect my resources. Any information about my income or savings was immediately turned into a weapon against me. Don't lie, my father narrowed his eyes. You've been working for 5 years. You live alone. You bought a new car. Where does the money go? It goes to living expenses. I felt myself falling into a familiar trap. They started with emotional pressure, moved on to accusations, and always ended the same way, demanding money. And every time I felt guilty just for not wanting to give them my salary. Karenna, we're not asking for much. My mother leaned across the table toward me. Just help your parents get back on their feet. We're not strangers. That's exactly why I can't give you money, I said, realizing that I was finally telling the truth. Because it will never end. First it'll be one amount, then another, and I'll never be able to live my life. My mother's face changed instantly. The soft, pleading mask slipped away, revealing cold anger. So we're strangers to you? Then I'm not going to participate in this charade, I said, getting up from the table. It's always the same. First you accuse me of something, then you demand money, and when I refuse, you start emotionally blackmailing me. No one is blackmailing you, my father exploded. We just want you to take responsibility for your actions. What actions? For deciding to live on my own? For finding a job that isn't in your store? For not wanting to listen to your reproaches my whole life? My mother slowly stood up and glared at me. There was so much cold hatred in that look that I involuntarily recoiled. At moments like this, she ceased to be a mother and turned into a woman who believed that the world owed her something and that her children were a failed investment that finally had to start paying dividends. You're an ungrateful egoist, she hissed through clenched teeth. We gave you the best years of our lives, and you repay us with coldness and contempt. The best years of your lives? I couldn't hold back. Mom, you had me when you were 22. What best years? You always said that motherhood wasn't your calling, that you dreamed of being an artist. Don't you dare twist my words. She jumped up so abruptly that her coffee cup tipped over, and a brown puddle spread across the white tablecloth. I sacrificed my dreams for you and your sister. No one forced you, I said quietly, but loud enough for her to hear. A deathly silence fell. Dad froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. Mom stood with her hands clenched on the back of her chair, and Emmis looked at us with a kind of horror, as if we had suddenly started physically fighting in front of her. How dare you? My mother whispered, her voice trembling with rage. How dare you talk to me like that after everything I've done for you? What have you done for me? I felt a long-suppressed anger rising inside me. Fed you? Clothed you? That's your duty as a mother. Or do you think children should be grateful to their parents for doing their duty? My duty? My mother laughed hysterically. My duty was to give birth to you and put you in an orphanage. Everything else I did out of love. Out of love or out of a sense of ownership? I knew I was saying terrible things, but I couldn't stop myself. I had kept it inside for too many years. Because true love doesn't require a constant return on investment. My father finally intervened. Enough! Both of you, enough! He slammed his fist on the table and all the dishes jumped. Karenna, you've gone too far. Apologize to your mother immediately. For what? For telling the truth? For acting like a spoiled egoist? He barked. We're asking you for help and you're making a scene and insulting your mother. You're not asking for help, I said, feeling my voice grow calmer as I realized the truth. You're demanding money after accusing me of all your failures. That's not a request. It's extortion. Extortion? My father turned red. How dare you? We are your parents. And that changes what? I took my purse from the back of the chair. The fact that you are my parents does not give you the right to my money, nor does it oblige me to put up with your constant accusations and manipulation. Where are you going? My mother grabbed my arm. We're not done talking. We finished 10 minutes ago, I said, gently pulling my arm away, when it became clear that you didn't want to hear anything except me agreeing to give you money. You can't just walk out, my mother shouted. Family problems aren't solved by running away. What family problems? I turned to her in the doorway. You don't have family problems. You have financial problems, and you want me to solve them at my expense. Those are two completely different things. Amos had been silent the whole time, glancing at her phone periodically, but now she looked up and stared at me with a strange expression. "Karenna, what do you even do for a living?" "What?" I didn't understand why she was asking me that in the middle of a family drama. "Well, you say you don't have any money, but you drive a fairly new car and rent an apartment in the heart of Orange. That's not cheap. What do you do?" "I'm a sales manager," I replied automatically, using my usual vague explanation. "What company?" I froze. Usually the conversation ended at this point because my parents weren't interested in the details of my work. All they cared about was how much I earned and how much of it I could give them. But today, for some reason, Amos decided to dig deeper. "In the medical field," I said as vaguely as possible. "What's the name of the company?" "Amos, why do you care?" I tried to steer the conversation away. "Just curious," she shrugged and buried her face in her phone again. "I never thought selling medical equipment could be so profitable." I was already heading for the exit when Amos suddenly jumped up from her chair so abruptly that it fell to the floor with a crash. "How did you get on the Forbes list?" she shouted, staring at her phone screen with wide eyes. For a few seconds, everyone was silent, as if the world had stopped. I stood in the doorway, holding the handle, feeling my heart pounding in my throat. Amos held her phone as if it were a hot coal, her parents looking from her to me with expressions of complete bewilderment. "What did you say?" Her father's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Forbes," Amos repeated, her eyes still glued to the screen. "The list of the 30 most successful entrepreneurs under 30. Karenna Finwood, 27, founder and CEO of MedSupply Solutions." She looked up at me. "Is that you?" I closed my eyes and cursed under my breath. Damn journalists. I asked them not to publish my name, but apparently the story of a young woman who built a multi-million-dollar company in 5 years was too appealing for them. "Karenna?" My mother stood up from the table. "What is she talking about?" I slowly turned and looked at the three of them, at their confused faces, the bewilderment in their eyes, at how they were trying to reconcile the image of their failure of a daughter who couldn't give them money with the information about a successful businesswoman. "It's true," I said simply. "What's true?" My father still couldn't understand. "MedSupply Solutions is my company. I founded it 3 years ago." My mother sank back into her chair as if she had been knocked down. "Your company? What company? You work as a sales manager." "I'm the CEO of my own medical equipment supply company," I explained, returning to the table but not sitting down. "We have contracts with hospitals in 5 states, and we specialize in high-tech diagnostic equipment." Amos scrolled through her phone. "It says here that your company made $8 million last year. 8 million, Karina." "Revenue," I corrected automatically. "Not profit revenue. Net profit is significantly less." "Significantly less than 8 million is still a lot." Amos looked at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. My father slowly stood up, his face gradually reddening. "You lied to us? All these years?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't give you the details." "Details!" My mother's voice trembled. "You hid from us that you had a multi-million-dollar company, and you call that details?" I sat down on the edge of the chair, realizing that this was going to be a long conversation. "I hid it because I knew how you would react. Just like you are now." "How will we react?" my father asked. "We'll react with pride. Our daughter is a successful entrepreneur." "No," I shook my head. "You'll react by demanding money. Just like you're doing now, only the amounts will be bigger." An awkward pause ensued. I could see them thinking about my words and knew I had hit the nail on the head. "Tell us everything from the beginning," my mother said cautiously, but I could hear a note of calculation in her voice. She was already weighing up the possibilities. I sighed. "When I left your magazine, I did work as a sales manager at a medical company for the first 2 years. I studied the market, established connections, and understood how the industry worked. Then I noticed a niche. Hospitals in small towns were having problems with the supply of modern diagnostic equipment. Large distributors didn't want to work with them because of the relatively small order volumes." "And you decided to fill that niche?" Amos listened intently. "I took out a loan against the apartment I was renting. found two partners, one in Germany who worked with equipment manufacturers, and one here who had connections in the medical field. We started small. I remembered those first months. Sleepless nights spent drawing up business plans, endless calls to potential clients, constant stress about money. I remembered how afraid I was to tell my parents about the loan, knowing they would panic and demand that I give up and go back to a normal job. The first year was terrible, I continued. We were barely making ends meet. I lived on pasta and worked 14 hours a day. Several times I thought about giving up. "Why didn't you ask us for help?" my mother asked, her voice tinged with hurt. I looked at her in surprise. "Really? Do you remember how you reacted when I said I wanted to leave the family business? You didn't talk to me for 2 weeks, and then for a month, every time we saw each other, you told me I was making a mistake." "We were worried about you." My father tried to justify himself. "You wanted to control me," I corrected him. "And if I had told you about my plans back then, you would have done everything to talk me out of it. Remember how you reacted to any independent decisions I made?" I remembered the day I decided to take out a loan. I was sitting in the bank manager's office, signing documents, thinking that if my parents found out, they would make a scene. My mother would cry and say that I had ruined my life. My father would yell about irresponsibility, and Amos would look at me with pity. "The second year was a turning point," I continued. "We got a big contract with a chain of clinics in Texas. That gave us stability and reputation. Things got easier after that." "And now you really have $8 million in turnover?" Amos still couldn't believe the numbers on the screen. "Last year, yes. This year, we're planning to reach 12. My father slowly sat back down in his chair. His face changed. The anger was replaced by a strange expression, a mixture of pride and confusion. "Our daughter is a millionaire," he muttered. "I'm not a millionaire," I quickly corrected. "The company has a large turnover, but that doesn't mean I have all that money in my account. There are salaries for employees, warehouse rent, purchasing goods, taxes, loans." But I could see that they weren't listening to me. Their eyes were already lit up with a very familiar glow. My mother leaned forward, her face taking on the expression she got when she was planning something. "Karenna, dear," she said softly, "now I understand why you hid your success from us. You were afraid we would ask you for money." "I wasn't afraid. I knew." "But now that the truth is out, we can talk honestly, can't we?" Mom smiled the smile I remembered from childhood, a sticky, manipulative smile that meant pressure was coming. "Talk about what?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "About family, about how we can help each other." "How can you help me?" I asked. My mother was taken aback for a second. She obviously hadn't expected me to turn the conversation in this direction. "Well, we can support you emotionally, give you advice based on our life experience." "Your life experience is a stationery store that closed 2 years ago," I said harshly. "What advice can you give me on managing international shipments of medical equipment?" My father intervened. "Don't talk to us like that. We are your parents after all." "That's exactly why I didn't want to tell you," I said, getting up from the table. "Because I knew that as soon as you found out about the money, you would immediately start claiming rights to it. Not because you deserve it, but simply because you are my parents." "Don't we deserve it?" My mother's voice became sharp. "Who raised you? Who paid for your education? Who taught you everything you know? What exactly did you teach me?" I felt anger rising inside me again. How to blame others for your failures. How to demand money from those who are more successful. How to manipulate guilt. Amos had been silent the whole time, but now she raised her head. "I don't understand why you're arguing. Karina is successful." "That's great." "Great," my mother agreed, "but she hid it from her family. That shows a lack of trust." "It shows common sense," I countered. "Karina," my father tried to sound calm, "we understand that you have reasons to be distrustful. But now that everything is out in the open, maybe it's time to start with a clean slate." I looked at him closely. There was sincerity in his voice, but I also saw calculation in his eyes. He was already figuring out how to use the new information. "What do you mean, start with a clean slate?" I asked. "Forget old grudges, help each other, become a real family." "And what exactly does that mean?" My father and mother exchanged glances. Amos watched us with a kind of sad curiosity. Well, you can see the situation we're in, my father began. After the store closed, we never managed to get back on our feet, and now you have the opportunity to help us. Here it was. I knew it would come to this. How much? I asked bluntly. How much what? How much money do you want? We don't want money, my mother said, placing her hand over her heart with an offended look of innocence. We want to restore our family relationship. Through money. Carenza, don't be so cynical, Amos interjected. Your parents are really struggling, and if you can help— I can, I agreed. The question is, should I? All three stared at me. Because if I give you money now, it will never end. In a month there will be another request. In 6 months another, and every time you will appeal to family ties and my duty to my parents. But don't you have that duty? My mother narrowed her eyes. Yes, I do. But it's to be a good daughter, not to finance your needs for the rest of your lives. The next few days after that Sunday dinner were strangely tense. I expected my parents to start calling immediately with demands, but they were silent. The silence was almost ominous. I knew them well enough to understand that they were planning something. On Wednesday evening, as I was working on my quarterly report at home, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Amos with 2 bags of Chinese food. Hi, she said when I opened the door. I thought we should talk, without our parents. I let her in, and we sat down in the kitchen with boxes of noodles and sweet and sour chicken. How's work? I asked, trying to make small talk. Boring, Amos said, poking at the box with her chopsticks. Same thing every day, checking other people's reports, correcting mistakes, writing summaries. The pay is terrible, and there's no future. I became wary. This kind of start to a conversation usually meant a request was coming. Your life is so interesting, Amos continued. My own business, international contracts, meetings with important people. It must be great to feel so successful. It's interesting, but there's a lot of work, I replied cautiously. Carenza, can I ask you something? Amos put down the chopsticks and looked at me seriously. Here it comes. I'm listening. Could you, take me to work with you? I sighed. Amos, I run a medical equipment supply company. You need special knowledge, industry connections, experience working with hospitals. You're an accountant at a construction company. But I can learn, she said pleadingly. I'm a quick learner, you know that. And I'm so tired of this job. Every morning I wake up and think, am I really going to spend the rest of my life sitting in this office counting other people's money? I understood how she felt. I had been there myself, but I also knew that hiring my sister would be a recipe for disaster. Mixing family and business was a bad idea in any case, and with a family like ours, it was especially so. Listen, I said gently, I understand that you're bored, but if you want to change careers, it's better to find a job at another company, get some experience, learn the market, and then, if you want, we can think about working together. So you're refusing to help me? I'm trying to help you by giving you good advice. Amos frowned. That's not help. That's excuses. You just don't want to hire me. I don't, I agreed. And you know why? Because if things go badly, I'll be the one to blame. And if things go well, you'll think you deserved it. Either way, our relationship will be ruined. You think too much about the worst, Amos said, standing up and pacing around the kitchen. We're sisters. We're supposed to support each other. That's exactly why I don't want to risk our relationship over a job. Amos stopped and looked at me with irritation. You know what I think? You're afraid of competition. You're afraid I'll be better than you. I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Amos, I have a company with 50 employees. If I were afraid of competition, I wouldn't have gotten this far. Then what's the problem? The problem is that working with family is a time bomb. Sooner or later, it's going to explode. Amos sat back down, but her face remained unhappy. Okay, forget about work. But you can give me money for classes or something? So I can retrain? Money again. It always came down to money. How much are the classes? I asked. Well, 5,000, I guess. Maybe 7. $7,000 for a course? Good courses are expensive. Amos defended herself. It's an investment in the future. I looked at my sister and suddenly realized that she had changed. In just a few days since Sunday lunch, she had become a different person. There was a demanding note in her voice, an expectation that I should give her something simply because I had money. Amos, you've been working for 3 years. Haven't you been able to save up for the course in that time? You know what my salary is. She shrugged. After rent, food, and other expenses, there's nothing left. What did you spend last year's bonus on? What bonus? The one you told me about. $2,000 for good work. Amos blushed. Well, I bought some things for the house, new clothes. I wasn't thinking about classes at the time. I see, I said, getting up and starting to put away the empty boxes. So when you had money, you spent it on things, and now that you want to study, I have to pay for your classes. You make it sound like I'm stealing from you, Amos said, offended. $7,000 is pocket change for you, but for me, it's a fortune. It's not pocket change for me, I corrected her. It's the result of long, hard work, and I'm not willing to just give it away to someone who spends their money on clothes and entertainment. So you won't help me? I'm willing to help, but not with money. I can give you some contacts, recommend you to someone, help you write a resume, but I won't pay for courses. Amos stood up and took her bag. I see, so we're only sisters when it suits you. We're sisters forever, I said wearily. But that doesn't mean I have to solve your financial problems. After she left, I sat down at the computer, but I couldn't concentrate on my work. I thought about how quickly my sister's attitude had changed. Just a week ago, we were getting along fine, and now she looked at me like I was a source of money. The next day, my father called. Karenna, we need to talk, he said without preamble. Why? To discuss family matters. What matters? Come home on Saturday. We'll talk calmly, without emotions. I knew this conversation was inevitable. It was better to meet and get everything out in the open than to live in constant tension. On Saturday, I went to my parents' house. My mother set the table as if it were a holiday, but the atmosphere was tense. My father sat in his chair with a serious expression, while my mother bustled around, offering food that no one wanted. So, my father began when everyone was seated. We've thought about our last conversation, and we realized we were wrong. I was on guard. My parents never admitted their mistakes. If they did, it meant they were up to something serious. What exactly were you wrong about? I asked. We were wrong to start making accusations right away, my mother said, sitting down next to my father. We should have celebrated your success first and discussed family issues later. What family issues? Well, how we can help each other. My father leaned forward. You know we're proud of you. Our daughter is on the Forbes list. That's incredible. Being proud is good, I said cautiously. And we want to support you, my father continued, to be part of your success. How? Well, we could help with running the company. We have business experience, my mother smiled. Or become investors. Put money into development. I barely suppressed a laugh. What money? You said yourselves that you're having financial difficulties. We'll find the money if there's a good opportunity, my father said confidently. Listen, I decided to be direct. Let's not play games. What do you want? My parents exchanged glances. Okay. My father leaned back in his chair. We believe that families should support each other. You've been successful, and that's wonderful. But now you have the opportunity to help your parents, who have worked their whole lives for your sake. How much? I asked bluntly. It doesn't have to be a large amount right away, my mother said. $50,000 would be enough to start with, so we can pay off our debts and start a new life. $50,000 to start with. And then? And then we'll see, my father shrugged. Maybe you'll take us into your company, or help us start a new business. I got up from the table. No. What do you mean, no? My mother looked surprised. No money, no job at my company, no investment in your business, nothing that has anything to do with money. Karenna. My father stood up and came over to me. You understand that we're not strangers. We're your parents. If you don't help us, who will? You'll help yourselves, I replied, like you've done until now, and like millions of other people do. But they don't have a millionaire daughter. My mother stood up and approached from the other side. I don't have millions in cash, I explained patiently. The company's money isn't my personal money. I can't just take it and give it to you." "Do you have any personal money?" my father asked. "Yes, I do, but I'm not going to give it to you." "Why not?" My mother's voice became plaintive. "Don't you feel sorry for your parents?" "I do," I admitted, "but not enough to ruin my life for your whims." "Whims?" My father blushed. "We're asking for help, and you call it whims?" "What else are they if not whims?" I grabbed my bag. "You closed your business. You couldn't find new jobs. You got yourselves into debt. And now you want me to pay for your decisions." "We're your parents," my mother shouted. "Exactly." I headed for the door. "And as parents, you should be happy for my success, not trying to take advantage of it. If you leave now, don't ever come back," my father said coldly. I stopped at the door. "Fine, I won't come back. Not until you stop seeing me as a source of money." "Karenna!" My mother rushed toward me. "You can't do this to us!" "I can." I turned to her. "And you know what? I realized that hiding my success from you was the right decision, because as soon as you found out about the money, you stopped seeing me as your daughter. Now I'm just an ATM to you." I left the house, got in my car, and sat there for a long time, holding the steering wheel. I was hurt, but at the same time I felt relieved. Finally, everything had been said. My phone vibrated. A message from Amos. "My parents told me about your conversation. Are you really not coming back?" I typed a reply. "I will when they stop asking for money. And if they don't? Then I won't. That's cruel." "It's honest," I wrote and turned off my phone. At home, I sat down at my computer and got to work. I had a company to grow, employees to pay, and clients who counted on me for quality service. This was my real family, people who worked with me toward a common goal, not trying to use me for their own gain. I understood that maybe someday my parents and I would reconcile, but that would only happen when they understood that I wasn't obligated to finance their lives just because they were my parents. For now, I needed to protect myself and my business from their attempts to turn our family relationship into a financial obligation. A few days later, I received a letter from a journalist who was writing an article for Forbes. He asked about my plans for the future and what had helped me succeed. I thought long and hard about my answer, and then wrote, "The most important thing in business is the ability to set boundaries. Boundaries with clients, partners, employees, and especially with family.